third wave is over. So this is what I do currently, apart from the other verticals that I serve in. So yeah, I'm passionate about children and people, and passionate about safety for women and children both. So my thesis is on POSH, the policy POSH. So that's my thesis on. So I'm trying to identify the gaps in the policy, and also if there is any room to include or make policies level suggestions for including trauma care as part of the policy. So that's my research on. So I'm going to be doing my research with women who have survived sexual violence at workplace, harassment at workplace. So thank you once again. And what I've been asked to share is about why there are delays in the justice for the survivors of child sexual abuse. So many of it, I think Sonal ma'am touched upon, and a few of the points she already kind of briefly touched on while she was talking. And I'm sure the other panelists also would do that, because it's intertwined. You can't not talk about it, whatever topic you've been given to share. So on the top of the list, I will be unpacking each of this for you, but on top of the list, I put the family there because, like how Sonal ma'am was suggesting, the family does not come forward, to register a case in the first place. And even if they do, then they kind of coach the child what to say at court, and then the case does not go through, or we don't get the kind of results that should have come out, And children are very easily manipulated, and they trust their parents more than anybody else. And when their parents tell them to share something in court, they go ahead and say that. So the family, as a stakeholder, fails to play its role in registering a complaint, and also in swaying the case as to how a survivor needs to get justice. They sway it a lot with their opinion and what they teach their children. And then on top of the list is community, because if family fails to register a complaint, I'm sure the community can play their role in it. And children go to school every day, at least before the pandemic they did. So if all stakeholders can be a little more observant of the child and more sensitive to a child, they can notice the changes in a child when a child is sexually abused, either once or repetitively. So I feel the community, school, friends, they also play a very important role in how a case turns out, or whether a case is first of all registered. So the first thing that we teach our children in school, if there is an issue, you can call Childline, 1098. So they are one of our stakeholders, and many times they are there. They are the first responders to a rescue call, or a call where it lands to them saying a child has been abused. And in every level, there are gaps in the way Childline handles that call, and how they rescue, what they register in their own intervene or in their report weighs a lot. That's their first intervention report that they submit to the police or to CWC. So there are gaps in that itself. So when a case finally comes to the court, all this paperwork matters, because the investigating officer has to collect all this information and kind of bridge or frame his investigation from the scratch. So even there, they play a role, the parents' influence, the public influence, the Childline rescue worker, and it really matters whether Childline wants to bring it to CWC or to the police. Otherwise, Childline can decide and sway one side or the other and kind of not even bring the case to us. So this is what is the ground reality that's happening, and I can very confidently speak on this for my district and also the state of Tamil Nadu, and I'm sure it happens in other states in India as well. So Childline and Railway Childline, who first rescue these children or come to know about it, there is a gap there in the way they handle that first response and how they register their own intervene. There are a lot of gaps in that. So secondly, sometimes children are picked up from the anti-human trafficking unit and anti-child trafficking unit. Both of them work in tandem with the NGOs and in tandem with each other as well. And there again, everywhere the rescue officer has a choice whether to register a case or not, or how to register a case. Whether they will know right at the beginning, they will know how to. If we register it a certain way, they'll know how the case will go through and how the victim will get, justice. So, in spite of knowing all that, they know how to switch. So there is a huge gap there within the system itself in not registering it properly and not addressing it properly, because these three people and also the police department, when they are involved, all four of them, their reporting and their intervene or their first information report is what they produce to the Child Welfare Committee. So what they say is what we initiate our case on, and then the 164, that the child is taken for 164 after that, our medical report is done after that. And our recommendation to the POCSO magistrate is based on what has been given to us. And our own investigative officer also visits the home and the child. We receive a probationary officer's report based on all these facts. All these paperwork together is what matters. And if all of it matches, what we say, what these people say, and also the investigating officer, his report, if it's all seamless, and if the child is not manipulated by any other external source, then there is a chance that the victim gets justice. Otherwise, it is very for a victim to evade through this paperwork and still, say the right things in court and win a case for herself. So these departments we work with very closely. There are gaps there. There are huge gaps there. There are gaps, intentional gaps, and there are unintentional gaps. People don't know the process properly sometimes, because each all-woman police station needs to have a special child welfare police there. So they are trained on how to handle the children who come there with sexual abuse. They're supposed to be in mufti, not in their uniform. They're supposed to talk to them very calmly, gently, make them feel comfortable. That's how well they are trained. But still, there are gaps in the way they are trained. There's awareness issues, protocol and process. These four departments or stakeholders of CWC, people keep changing. There are transfers. So then there is a lot of information that gets diluted. The new person comes in as a child-friendly police officer, and they don't know what their role is all about. So there are a lot of these gaps in all these four stakeholders. That is child line, railway child line, the AHTU and the ACHTU. All four of them, there are many gaps through which the case kind of falls through, and in the police department as well. So the CWC works very closely with the police department, very closely with the SP, the IG. We build a relationship intentionally so that we are able to win cases for children. This is something that we do at our district. And again, it's all each district's priorities and the committee's passion to do what they asked to do. So POCSO is just one of the verticals that we are looking at. We have other verticals also, but then I think this is really of a critical nature. And so we as a committee are very consciously working towards rapport building and training and encouraging police people to be for the child and not for the perpetrator. So it really needs a paradigm shift, if I can say so, from the department, and the people who have to safeguard the child must have the child as their priority. Otherwise, everything falls through. So this is something we are constantly working with the department. And we also have the Child Protection Unit, which works as a secretarial unit. And in many times, as per the amended POCSO Act of 2019, each child gets a support person. So when the child comes into the system, there is someone called the support person who's assigned to that child. So that person is the go-to person for the child throughout the case. So whether the child stays with us in a childcare institution or the child prefers to go home, if the perpetrator is not from the family, we place the child back with the family. So in whatever case it is, we assign a support person. And the support person kind of handholds the child, the family, teaches them how a case is done, what happens next. Families don't know. POCSO is filed, but who knows what happens after that? Most time families are clueless. They're dealing with their emotions and trauma, and decision making just happens rapidly after the case is filed, and they don't even know how to navigate through this. So the support person is supposed to help the child and the family through this difficult period of time. So that support person and other emotional support, counseling, and even financial support comes from the Child Protection Officers Unit. There are gaps there too, because how we motivate a child to say what happened to her is very important. End of the day, the final hearing comes from the child, and she has to say what happened to her and who did it to her, and that's when the case is wrapped up on her behalf and not on the perpetrators. We also coordinate with the social welfare department. Not always abuse happens even in child marriage, so we coordinate with district social welfare department. There are a lot of gaps there too. I acknowledge the gaps. We're working towards it, but these are few reasons why justice does not come through. And lastly, all the NGOs and social workers and social activists who are working in this sector for children, I think the onus is on us. When all the above entities or stakeholders fail, we cannot fail the child. But there's only so much an NGO can do. There are limitations. There are boundaries beyond which they cannot cross, or they may not be willing to do that. But if we can step up our game a little bit, just a little bit, go to the next level for the child's sake, I'm sure we can make a difference. We definitely need to push all the other stakeholders above you guys, so that even if we can, one child at a time, justice, one child at a time. If all of us can work together, that's the only way to go about it. There will be gaps, we can talk about it, but then how are we going to address the gaps? What are we going to do about it as people in the social sector is something that we need to ask ourselves. How do we fill the gap? And finally, yes, the mainstream court, the family court or the special POCSO court, there are a lot of delays there. But by the time a case is registered and when it closes, it's sometimes many years. And then the whole essence of it is lost. The child is kind of disillusioned. The family is disillusioned. The whole thing changes. The whole case looks very different after a year. So a lot of things have moved on and life moves on for them. They just want to be done with it and have their life back. They want to forget that bad day and move on. So court again, yeah, we can talk about the pandemic right now, but then even before the pandemic, this whole process was very slow and still is slow. But I'm sure Ruth will talk more about it. But now there are currently the district magistrates are also given the onus to be the POCSO court magistrates. And so cases are moving a little faster than they used to, at least in Tamil Nadu, that is how it is. And now very often Child Welfare Committee and the sitting magistrates, we talk about cases together. We meet up, at least in our district, this is what happens. We meet up every month to discuss what cases are there. And as Child Welfare Committee, we send our recommendation to the JM saying, this is what the child told us in our first hearing, and our consecutive counseling sessions, this is what the child has expressed. So that kind of validates that the act has happened. And, we work together in finding solutions to this case. So in protecting the child, in making sure the child is kept in a safe place if required. In some cases, we've kind of isolated the child from the family as well. We know the family is trying to break the case. There's pressure on the family. So we keep the child in the system and protect the child, and she goes to the court with a support person and security services if need be. So these are all things that CWC can ask for and do. It is within our purview. It's just that many people don't go to that extent. They don't want to take each case seriously and do it. But when we do that, we see the end result is for the child. We've seen that happen. So these are the gaps, and probably all of us have to work together in filling the gaps or address the issue, speak about it more openly, and we need to we need to be whistleblowers if that is what is needed. Where there's a gap, you need to address it, talk about it more openly to media or to people or departments. A dialogue helps a lot. We need to start with dialogue and engaging with people. Engaging with the police department has helped CWC a lot, especially when it comes to POCSO cases. So they also have a list of worries and difficulties as to why they don't take up POCSO cases, why they refuse to register cases, why they want to resolve it out of the system. They have their own list of woes and worries, and then when we dialogue, we know how to work through a case, we know how to support the police also in a particular case. So we found, having dialogues and meetings and having a chat with them, informal chat actually helps. We don't call them for an official meeting. I usually call them out for a coffee, and when we go to the police station, we invite them for a coffee. When you do offbeat, crazy things, they don't know what to do with us. So that has worked. So sometimes you just need to get down to their level and see what works for each station or each SI or each SP is different. Their passion for crime is different. So you just need to work with each person to see how we can kind of close the gap that is. So this is what I wanted to share. So I'll stop with this, and if there are questions, we can take it up later. Thank you, Chrysolite.